This is ESBR Boxing, and I'm delighted to be joined by my weekly preview esteemed colleague, Elliott Grigg, once again. Obviously, this is the first weekly preview show of 2023, and I'm sure I'm speaking for both of us here saying that we're excited to get back talking boxing again after a little Christmas break. Elliott, how are you doing?
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying there, Paul. Actually, completely concur. Delighted to see your face again on this side of 2023. Yeah, like you say, just looking forward to getting back in. So yeah, well rested, well fed, and keen to get back going again.
Absolutely. So yeah, as we say, this is the first preview show again of 2023. Boxing's starting to pick up a little bit again from this weekend onwards. This weekend there's really only one main card. That's kind of notable. Same as the following weekend. But obviously in a couple of weeks we've got pay-per-view boxing back with Liam Smith and Chris Eubank Jr. and stuff. But yeah, this weekend we're stateside and Gervonta Davis headlines. And he's fighting Héctor Luis Garcia. We're going to look at three fights, and each fight is from that card. There's some big names fighting on this card, actually, albeit not in world title fights or whatever, but still some big fights with some big names. So yeah, well, without further ado, we may crack on. As I mentioned there, Gervonta Davis back in action against Héctor Luis Garcia. Obviously, a lot of people will have heard of Tank Davis, but not so much Garcia. A quick run through of both fighters. Gervonta Davis 27-0, 25 knockouts. He's only 28 years old, 5'5.5" with a 67.5-inch reach, and of course he's a southpaw too. His opponent Héctor Luis is also undefeated, 16-0 with 10 KOs. A little bit older at 31. He's also a southpaw. Quite noticeably, he's 3.5 inches taller than Tank, and he's from the Dominican Republic. So yeah, this is the first fight for Tank since his it was quite an emphatic KO of Rolly Romero back in May. People are saying, is it a warm-up fight before he fights Ryan Garcia? I don't. For me, I don't think this is such a warm-up fight. I think it's not a potential banana skin, but still, a tough enough opponent. Um, Garcia obviously won. He won the WBA regular world super featherweight title last time out. I believe this fight's at lightweight. But yeah, it's not an easy warm-up from Tank. Far from it. Just give us your thoughts, please, Elliot.
No, I totally agree with you, Paul. Actually, I was thinking, I suppose in a way we can look at it. You can look at it kind of superficially and go, yes, it is a warm up. But then you dig into the record of Garcia and you go, actually, a warm up or tune up from a sort of like matchroom British perspective kind of tune up. This is not. So yeah, I think it's yeah, a good sort of test, I suppose, for Tank Davis. Obviously, he's had a lot of issues going into this fight as well that have been all over social media as well. So it'll be interesting kind of to see where he is. Mentally, physically, etc., etc. Yeah, obviously we're keen, aren't we, for Tank to have the bigger fights? So frankly, it'd be nice for at least to hopefully to get his family drama out of the way this time, rather than if it was in a kind of a Garcia for the the Ryan Garcia matchup or something. But yeah, I still expect Tank to prevail. Obviously, I'm a man, like it goes without saying. We've said it before on this show. I'm a massive Tank Davis fan. Yeah, 25 KOs and 27 fights. So I sort of expect Tank to probably get the stoppage here, but just yeah, a tougher fight. I agree with you, a tougher fight actually than initially superficially viewed on paper.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it is a lot tougher, but I agree with you in what you're saying. I still see Tank coming through this, probably by knockout as well. Maybe in the second half of the fight even, because I think Héctor Luis Garcia will have a real good go. He'll believe that he can have the beating of Tank, especially as you mentioned what's going on outside the ring with Tank Davis. Is he going to be 100% there mentally? Things like that, they do make a huge difference. So yeah, it's interesting to see what version of Tank Davis turns up. But I'm sure everyone watching this agrees. We want to see those massive fights, the likes of Ryan Garcia. You know, would he fight Lomachenko? No, Lomachenko and Haney look like they're going to fight. Could he fight Devin Haney, the winner of that? Whatever. We just want to see those big fights at lightweight next year, and we'll move swiftly on to the one of the undercard fights on this card, Elliot. I believe you're going to take us through a fight of one of the hottest prospects in world boxing, I would say.
That is indeed correct, Paul. I'm going to do that. So yeah, we're obviously dealing with welterweight division. Jaron Ennis is obviously taking on the number 4 ranked IBF ranked welterweight from Ukraine, Karen Chutsukanian. I believe is how to pronounce it. And if it's not how you pronounce it, it's how I'm going to choose to pronounce it. So Jaron Ennis obviously needs minimum introduction. We had a very good year last year. Paul was talking there. Comes into this fight with victories over Custard Clayton, KO, that was a second round KO victory. Thomas DeLorme, that was back in 2021 again with a first round KO, and obviously that victory over Lipinets, victories over Chris Van Heerden, obviously people will know from fighting Conor Benn. So Jaron Ennis, obviously, along with, I suppose, it's a name, isn't it? Really, along with Spence, along with Crawford, that people want to sort of see in fights in that division. This fight here against, as mentioned, Karen Tsikanian, is a guy who's we've got 21, 1-0. Again, similar age to Ennis, 26 years old, orthodox fighter as well. Slightly shorter than Jaron Ennis by only half an inch, so he's 5'9.5" to Jaron Ennis is 5'10". But I think it goes without saying, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here, hasn't got the names necessarily on the resume that Jaron Ennis has, or that the guys in the higher up in that division have. So obviously you've got victories coming into it from 2022, beating Guy 14-2, Blake Minto beat Ryan Martin, also 14-2 at that point, 8th round TKO. So Paul, I suppose my question to you really is, like you said, Jaron Ennis tipped by everyone to be future world champion. One of the sort of eminent names in that welterweight division. Is this a tune-up fight for him, do you think? Is this just something to sort of go through the motions? And post this fight, where do you see him going maybe over the next year?
Yes, thanks, Elliott, for your superb introduction there. I think that I'm going to call him Karen Chikadzian, and that's just from my MMA knowledge because there's someone with the same surname, so I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. But yeah, no, he's a credible opponent for Boots. Only the one defeat, as you mentioned, does have a few good wins in good form. What level are those wins at? I know, Ryan Martin, wasn't he in one of the Super Series? He was one late opponent
right.
for, I can't remember who it was it Josh Taylor or someone, but he was a late opponent for someone in the World Boxing Super Series. So, although he hasn't gone on to do great things, it's still a good win for Chikadzian. Could pose problems. I don't know if he will, though, considering how good Boots has looked in the last year or two against fighters who you would say are better on paper than Chikadzian is. And to answer your next question, where do I see him going? I think you're looking at this. I think other than Spence and Crawford, hopefully they fight each other. And we don't know what's going to happen, whether one would move up, whether both would move up, whatever happens. But you're looking at it. Jaron Ennis, who's only 25, he could be the next real dominant force at welterweight. He really could. He's that good. Obviously, this is for the IBF interim title. Errol Spence holds the full title. So will they become a mandatory for Errol Spence, depending on what his situation with Crawford? I think Jaron Ennis, he's still young enough, but I think he wants those big fights now. I think in 2023, start of 2024, we want to see Jaron Ennis in big fights, and I, for one, can't wait.
No, I totally agree with you. I think if we're looking at records here, obviously Jaron Ennis, 29-0, 27 KOs. Another KO, do you reckon, this weekend?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say another mid round stoppage. Let's say 5 or 6. I'll say.
Thank you, Paul. So we're now going to go back to you, Paul. I'm going to pass it back over to you for the last fight of the card that we're discussing today. Please take it away.
Yes. So again, we're looking at this, and funnily enough, 3 American fighters, all of the A-side fighters, all undefeated. Of course, we are talking about Demetrius Andrade, and he is fighting Demon Nicholson, I think you call him. It's a weird one. Well, before I go into that, I'll go through the records for people that don't know. Demetrius Andrade's 31-0 with 19 stoppages. 6 foot, 73.5 inch reach. He's a southpaw, former 2-weight world champion. He was champion down to super welter and of course middleweight. This is up at super middleweight, this fight. Nicholson's 26-4. He's got a really good KO percentage with 22 knockouts out of his 26. Has been stopped twice in his 4 defeats. He's only 29 years old, still fresh. He's also 6 foot and has a similar reach to it, 73. So yeah, he's a decent super middleweight. I don't know if I'd say it's a good test for Andrade in his first fight up at super middleweight, but I think there's quite a lot of question marks surrounding Boo Boo, as he likes to call himself here. He hasn't fought since November 2021 when he fought Jason Quigley, and it was only a 2-round blowout. It wasn't competitive at all. So he's really lacking competitive rounds, I think, Andrade recently. He's very frustrating. Has he moved up to super middleweight because he's I don't think he struggles to make the middleweight limit. I know he's 6 foot, but a lot of middleweights are 6 foot or so. Is he struggling to make the weight? Maybe, or is he just lazy? Is he ducking people at middleweight? Is there a few people he doesn't really want to fight? You never know. Um, Nicholson has losses to big name fighters that will have recognized, likes of Edgar Berlanga, Jesse Hart, Steve Rolls. They've all beaten Nicholson. So I do fully expect Andrade to win this. However, you do say with Nicholson, the 26 wins, 22 knockouts, he's definitely got at least a very minimum a puncher's chance. What are your thoughts on this fight, Elliot?
Yeah, I actually thank you very much for that. It was very, very eloquent and detailed breakdown. And I as you were talking through it, I was just thinking, I'd love to see Nicholson start him now. I was just sitting there thinking, like, kind of agree with you. I agree with you fully. I don't think Andrade should be struggling to make the middleweight limit. So it seems, like you said, like size, stature of him, physicality of him. So I don't think I'm going. Is there, like you say, is he ducking someone? Is he just? Yeah, we heard, didn't we, recently? We was talking about, he didn't want to fight Zanenbeck and all these sort of like those thinking it was essentially beneath him and all this sort of stuff. And you're sort of going, I don't know with Andrade. Like, he frustrates the hell out of me, frankly. Like, he always seems to be sort of hanging around. Wants that Canelo fight. That Canelo fight doesn't look like it's coming. Equally, you look at him and look at him again. Performance against Liam Williams, sensational for periods, really average for other parts of it. And you're just sort of going like, I don't know. I just with Boob, I just don't know. Like, sometimes he looks incredible. Sometimes he looks average. So if Nicholson gets him on a kind of average night, can he do something? I mean, I'd like to see a close fight. I'd like to see him in a decent fight, to be frank. But equally, I think if Andrade's on the form that he kind of can bring, the best level that he can bring, I'd expect him to win this. Yeah, frankly. But it's just a case of how he turns up, to be. But yeah, he frustrates the life out of me, frankly. And I would like to see him in some more competitive fights. Frankly, rather than the sort of the lip service that he keeps paying, and the sort of names that he keeps mentioning. I'd rather just see him getting with more competitive fighters.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think he's very talented, Andrade, but he does frustrate me too. He's clearly got so much ability, and like who knows, he might have been the best middleweight around there for a while. Um, Moving up to super middleweight. It's not like he's going to be overly small. Obviously, he is 6 foot, but there's just I don't think there's a need for it. To be honest with you, obviously, so you were talking about the Zanabek fight. Is it because he thinks he's above him, or is it because he really doesn't fancy it? Do you know what I mean? You don't know. But yeah, I think as you mentioned there, the interesting thing for me is the inactivity for Andrade, and if he isn't 100% on song, he could get hurt by Nicholson because he obviously is a big puncher and has been fighting the super middleweight for a lot longer than Andrade has. But I do fully expect Demetrius Andrade to come through this. Will it be a
Oh,
knockout?
I think, to be honest with you, I don't know how you think about this, but I think this is actually probably the pick of the three fights for me, actually, intrigue wise.
Yeah, no, I completely see what you mean. Yeah, I'd make this the closest maybe out of the three, just because there is that intrigue there. What Andrade is going to turn up? Um, why is he
Mm.
at super middleweight? But yeah, I do agree with what you're saying there. I think that's considering there's not a lot of boxing going on elsewhere, this is actually a really strong card.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think another one of our cohorts, Elliott Stockwell, has been beating the drum sometimes, saying that the US cards are significantly better than the UK cards, and frankly, it already looks like this card is a lot better than some of the things we've got coming up in the UK. So yeah, I mean, like you say, you got some big names, like three big names, which you wouldn't necessarily see on a British card. So we should at least celebrate that alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll do us, Elliot. Don't know if you want to add anything else, but yeah, I'm just happy to be back. 2023, obviously, we'll be back every single week now, with a weekly preview of a few fights coming up. Next week, I'm not so sure what we'll do next week or whether we will have them because I think I had a quick look and there's only really one big fight, but we'll definitely be doing something for um Smith Eubank Jr. and there on after. But yeah. Elliot, thanks very much for joining me again, and I'm delighted to be back in your company and previewing fights.
Here, thank you, Paul, and thank you guys all for watching.